What's up? Welcome back to Nowstalgia. Dave here, reacting to the actors on strike. Yes, the Screen Actors Guild, SAG-AFTRA, is on strike in Hollywood, joining the Writers Guild of America, also on strike. Both the actors and the writers are on strike. The writers have been on strike since May. We talked about that when that happened. The actors just going on strike this weekend in mid-July after a 98% strike authorization. And this is very significant, obviously. This is the first time both the writers and the actors have been on strike at the same time since 1960, back when Ronald Reagan was the head of SAG. And it's the first acting strike in general in 43 years. Really significant. It's coming at a obviously very important time for this sort of thing. It's a major inflection point, I think, for the entertainment business, the film industry, etc. And we'll get into all of that. Right off the bat, though, it's really hard not to look at the Directors Guild, which did cut a deal 2 weeks ago, and just give them a massive L, because the directors couldn't wait 2 weeks. They had nothing to lose, because guess what? The directors can't do any working without any actors or writers, now can they? They thought they could do work without writers with completed scripts, and perhaps that's true in some sense, but that's all gone now with the actors. Everything's being shut down. We already have word of big productions, movies slated for 2024, such as Deadpool 3, Venom 3, Mission Impossible, Dead Reckoning Part 2, Gladiator 2, the Formula 1 movie with Brad Pitt. All these productions are stopped. And there's a lot of, I think, implications for the industry that we'll get to. But of course, I think it's very important that the strike is happening when it is, just because the things that the labor and management are in clear disagreement on are very important. These are not things that should be just rushed to the side or punted down the road because the film industry is still recovering post-COVID and post the about face that the industry and Wall Street has taken when it comes to the economics of the streaming industry and the streaming model. Despite all that, people need to make a living that work in the business, and that includes the people that aren't at the very top, right? And I think some people who might not think about it for too long might be like, oh, the actors are going on strike. The actors are all rich and famous. What does it matter to them? We have to remember, the Screen Actors Guild has 160,000 people in it. That's actually 15 times larger than the Writers Guild, by the way. 160,000 people. Most of these are middle class, working class actors. We're not talking about the stars. Obviously, the stars will be fine with their millions and their platforms. But thankfully, with the actors now on strike, you have these famous people with an audience, with a platform that can help really spread the cause and perhaps put more pressure on, the AMPTA, put more pressure on, AMPTP, the theater, the studio, union management group, basically put pressure on them to try and get some momentum going, But much like when we talked about the writer's strike going down in the beginning of May, earlier this year with the Golden Globes, you had The Bear season 1 winning for writing. And one of the guys who won for writing, won a Golden Globe, won recognition for doing his job well. Earlier that day, he had posted that he was going to the Golden Globes with an overdrafted bank account. Something is broken here. And it's clearly something is broken even when you're doing your job well. Do I think we'll live in a world down the line where there's 160,000 working actors? No, probably not. It goes the same for writers. I think the overall number of jobs will go down. But for the people that are doing the job, things just need to improve. Part of that is just general minimum rate increases. I think they'll eventually agree to that. The labor won't get as much as they want as a increase, but they'll get more than what's currently being offered. I think that's an easy one that eventually will be worked out with time, like it always is. I think the big thing, though, the writers, this is a big stigma with the writers, it's a big stigma with the actors. Residuals as a part of the business, as a part of making money, just has to be changed, has to be kind of updated for 2023 and beyond. And, with streaming, there's kind of like a blanket residual that happens when your show is on the air and remaining on a streaming service, but there is no success-based residual the way there used to be when stuff was, in syndication and on cable and in rotation like that. That doesn't exist, and that's a major sticking point. Also, I think one of the biggest headlines of all would be regarding artificial intelligence. Obviously, the writers are very against AI being used to rip off their existing work and also replace their future work. That seems clear. It's a fair point a fair stance to take, right? But actors also, this kind of came up with background actors getting paid for a day of work, and then having their background likeness like scanned and used by the studio in the future without actually being paid for those future use. I don't see why anyone would willingly sign up for having their future work not being available to them. Like, it doesn't make any sense why the studios think that's something people would take. Because what is their point of view, the studios? Oh, well, you can only do one day of work with background and scan it in. That means you can do more jobs, but you wouldn't get more jobs. The studios obviously would just eventually get enough background acting scanned in with AI and just keep recycling the same background actors, and we'd eventually probably notice it one day, right? And you would just kind of kill that as a job entirely, you would think. So I'm not sure when that as like a point of contention would come down, but that's something that needs to be resolved. And in general, guardrails on AI in the industry is a big talking point. And I think it's great that it's happening now. It would have had to happen eventually. And you're seeing stuff like lawsuits where I think Sarah Silverman was in one where like, hey, like, you're using my work to train your program. And it's like there's a big plagiarism thing going on right now at AI because we don't have any rules. It's all so new, so much more to come on that, both outside of the context of the strike. But we also have, in the, next year, the IATSE union, the Teamsters union, their contracts are up. So all the crew on productions will be, I think, bring similar complaints to the table, just general rate increases, but also other more existential things. So, I think this is something that has to get resolved because you can't have labor being left behind just because your industry is not as successful and humming as it has in the past. And it's just incredibly poor optics for Bob Iger, the CEO of Disney, to sign on for an additional 2 years and also give himself a $5 million raise in the process on top of his already like $20 million plus, salary that he already has. And yeah, was that Bob Iger's decision? Was it the board's decision? I don't care. It doesn't make a difference because these companies are still turning over tons of revenue. And I think overall, like I said, like in terms of like the studio's, thoughts about the business realities of the time, I think there'll just be less jobs and less work overall in the future. But you need to take care of the people that will be fortunate enough to remain doing the jobs. And I think that's just kind of where we're at. And, like I said, we have all these major productions shut down. There's talk of independent films getting waivers to continue production, obviously due to their small scale and, lack of financing as it is. They're not required for distribution. The Writers Guild didn't do such a thing, and I would advise that the SAG not do that because you're just going to actually hurt the strike overall, and the studios would be incentivized to just fund and acquire independent films at the very beginning of it, and they would just kind of prolong the pressure that you would be putting on the studios with the lack of completed product to then sell, at the box office, on your streaming service, etc. So kind of hoping that doesn't happen. Obviously, actors no longer are going to be promoting their films. You had the Oppenheimer UK red carpet moved up an hour so that the cast could participate briefly before then leaving. They canceled the red carpet for the New York premiere of Oppenheimer. No stars will be at the Venice and Toronto film festivals, coming up soon, which definitely hurts the buzz generation that movies that go to film festivals kind of need to get their path toward distribution and hopeful profitability going. So that's not great. of course, already, with the writers strike, you have late night shows have all been shuttered, obviously. So that's another promotion outlet that's long been gone for a few months now when it comes to selling movies. Um, the Emmys almost assuredly will be delayed out of September, perhaps into November or even January. Um, no actors will go to San Diego Comic-Con. It's coming up very soon, which I guess was kind of forecast with the sake that like most big studios are not going to Comic-Con. I guess they kind of saw the writing on the wall there. But nonetheless, like there's just not a lot that can happen right now. The industry is basically ground to a halt, and there's productions over in the UK, and of course international, and thus there'll be tons of international movies still at the film festivals because they obviously operate under different rules with different unions and whatnot, if they even have unions, depending on where the movie's made. So the film festivals won't be completely bone dry, thankfully, but yeah, I think we're in it for the long haul here, at least through the summer. Sometime in the fall, I think, is when people think this could potentially be resolved, but it's not going to be soon. And again, major L for the directors, because you can't do shit now anyway. Really stupid of them to kind of scab over in the way they did. And I guess, looking ahead, it'll be very interesting to see what happens in the 2024 movie space, where, I mean, I believe Captain America Brave New World, which is dated for July, that's actually completed filming. No other Marvel Cinematic Universe movie for next year and beyond has completed filming. That would be an issue for sure. Dead Reckoning, like there's just a lot of the thought of a barren movie calendar a few years post COVID. It's a disaster for the industry, but I think that's the kind of pressure you have to put on management to make lasting from the point of view of labor. So we'll be paying attention and rooting for a swift resolution, but it's going to be a while. But let me know, how are you feeling about the SAG strike in the wake of the Writers Guild strike? How long do you think it'll take before this gets resolved? Are you worried about the future? And for more updates on the labor disputes of Hollywood, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.